Hello, friends, and thank you for joining us, Shark's Perspective, the podcast with subject matter experts in marketing. How do you, as a marketer, support sales? We know that marketing and sales teams have to work well together for both sides to excel, but there's a tug of war that's been going on for a very long time. Pam Didner is the author of Effective Sales Enablement. She's a speaker, an adjunct professor, strategist, Fortune 100 senior marketer, and a subject matter expert on sales enablement. And on this episode, we'll discuss how marketing can better help sales succeed, the necessary alignment of messaging, how the timelines on the purchase journey are so different, and how to become a better marketer through sales enablement. So let's tune in to a sales enabler with a Glenn Gary of Sharks on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. Pam, thank you so much for joining us today on A Shark's Perspective. If you would please tell us a little bit about your background and your career thus far.
All right. And it's wonderful to be on your podcast. Thank you so much for
Of
having
course.
me. And for all your listeners out there, Pam Didner, and I actually marketing consultant specifically for B2B. But before that, I was at Intel for about 20 years. And I was very fortunate to join a company that actually encouraged people to move around. So when I was at Intel for 20 years, I wasn't actually um, was not a marketer to start with. I was in finance and accounting, but I was able to move around within the company from the finance and accounting to literally manufacturing. Yes, I was on the fab for a little while, and then to product development and project management, even marketing. Eventually moved to digital marketing and marketing strategy, and somehow led to my departure to write a book about global content marketing. And here I am.
Well, today's topic is based on another one of your books, Effective Sales Enablement. We'll
Yes,
spend
that's
a
my
lot of
second
time
book.
on, achieve sales growth through collaborative sales and marketing. Pam, it's just us girls here, so can you please admit on air if you want to, but everyone knows that sales performs well only because of marketing, right? It's marketing good, sales bad. No,
That's not true.
that's not true. Actually, though, what I do want to ask is what inspired you to write this particular book? What were the frustrations and pain points that you wanted marketers to overcome? In order to help sales and sales function better with marketing as well.
Yeah, well, good point. So there are a couple reasons, and I think there's a personal reason and also a professional reason, if you will. And on the personal front, and it's kind of like I finished my first book and that did pretty well, and I have a framework in place in terms of how to scale content across the region. Oh, by the way, my first book is really about content marketing, but how
Mm-hmm.
to scale content across the region. And I was really thinking about, hey, you know what? I want to write a marketing trilogy. Seriously,
Mm-hmm.
Pam Dinner marketing trilogy. And I was thinking, what is the second book I want to write? And I thought about it long and hard. For longest time, it's really about digital marketing, the social media, and even marketing strategy. But at the end, I drew from my own experience in terms of my experience supporting the sales. And I supported indirect sale and direct sales for a number of years when I was at Intel. And by the way, I was never a salesperson. So when I'm talking about sales enablement, I'm really talking from the perspective of how a marketer can do to better support a sales team, if you will.
Sure.
So that's on the personal front in terms of my goal of writing a marketing trilogy, and at the same time, I have a certain kind of experience I can draw from. On the professional front, that in addition to the experience I want to share, I also interview many marketing manager who support sales and also sales operations, sales VP of sales, and sales enablement manager in terms of their experience, how they enable sales. So what I want to do on the professional front, there's another reason, if you will, is that I also notice the boundaries between the marketing and sales are becoming blurry. And the perfect example is email marketing, right? For longest time, uh, who does email marketing? Is marketing department, so the email marketers within the marketing functions. But with the CIM, basically sales are doing a mini a targeted a campaign themselves to reach out to prospects, right? So they are also doing email marketing, right? That's one example. What about social media, right? There is a term called social selling that the salespeople are actually using social media to reach out to prospect, which is not much different than what marketers are doing using social media channel for the outbound marketing effort. And because the boundary is getting it's overlapping, it's getting closer to closer in terms of what sales is doing, what marketing is doing is not that clear anymore. I want to share my experience along with other people's experience in terms of what they do to better support sales as a marketer. Is that helpful?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Well, and by the way, it's very nice that you got a very nice comment on the front from a guy that I'm a fan of. At least his book Talk Triggers, Jay Baer. That was
I
nice.
love Jay.
Very
Yes.
very very good author. How'd you get that?
Um, well, I wrote a check to Jay, and that helps tremendously.
Sure. No, that's funny.
Actually, I had a conversation with Jay, and Jay and I pretty much launched our books at the same time,
Sure.
and this is probably his fifth book, and he just for everybody who is listening, and Jay Bear's most recent book is Talk Triggers, and if you have not read it, you should check it out. If you are doing word of mouth marketing, and he actually have quite a bit of framework in place that actually help you out to do it better. And I did reach out to Jay directly, and I say, hey, I have a book that I'm writing right now, and then it's really about how marketer can better support sales. And they say, hey, yeah, sure. You know what, Pam? Love to help out. So I'm forever grateful, Jay.
Yeah, no kidding. And you just need a couple of llamas on the next cover of your book. So, but you know,
I'll make sure I do that next time.
no kidding. So why do you think that dichotomy exists then between sales and marketing in most organizations? If there is a divide between who wants to own it, why do you think one wants to own it versus the other?
So in terms of ownership, if if you ask me specifically for email marketing or even social media marketing, who should own it directly? Um, on general, on surface, I think marketing should own it. However, it also depends on your marketing organization structure. It
Mm-hmm.
also depends on how the collaboration between the sales and marketing. It also depends on how extensively your sales team are using it. So there's a lot of variables that you need to take into account to determine who actually should own it. But in general, I mean, if you talk to anybody, even between the sales team and between marketing team, chances are some of those channels tend to be owned by marketing. I personally don't believe this is Pam talking, and for listeners out there, if you disagree with me, please let me know. I'm more than happy to hear your comment and address your concerns. I personally don't think sales want to own anything, tools per se. They just want their jobs easier, right? They
Yeah.
they want there's a tool that you want them to that you want the sales team to use. They was like, okay, what do I get out of it? I don't think they care about owning anything. They just want to make sure that they have a tool available or they have things available for them so their job can be done easier. So from that perspective, I think a lot of tools on the marketing side can certainly be leveraged on the sales side. Now it's just a matter of a conversation and how to educate the sales team to use it. That's one. And second thing is that's obviously from internal, you're looking stuff from the inside out. But if you look at from outside in, you want to make sure that you create seamless experience for
Mm-hmm.
your prospects.
Good. So then let's dive into the book a little further. One of the
Sure.
issues any marketer will hear about is lead quality. Everyone wants the Glengarry leads, and
Yeah,
if they aren't the Glengarry leads and they're perfect, then it's marketing's fault, and that's always has been that way, always will be. But
I
from
know. I
from
agree.
chapter 3, I really like the point about how marketing is woven into those future trends. Elaborate, if you will, a little bit about what you mean by the dilemma for marketers, please.
Um, I think there are a couple things in terms of a dilemma for marketing. On the chapter 3, obviously, I specifically talk about the constant friction between sales and marketing. The biggest issue, if you will, is that marketing and the sales tend to have a different goals, and also the timing of how things happen tend to be different. For example, let's look at the buyer's purchase journey. And in general, I'm just saying in general, the marketing tend to focus on the top of the funnel, right? You focus on building the brand equity, focusing on build the brand awareness, and then you hopefully capture people's attention and they express interest, and then you qualify them as a lead, and hopefully that will move down to the middle and also the bottom funnel, which is the salespeople will take over. So right there, how the roles and responsibility are divided along the buyer's purchase journey are a little bit different. So that's one. Second thing is also the goal priority, right? So salespeople, they tend to focus on short term. Every single month, every single quarter, they have sales quota they have to meet,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's inevitable. It's right there in front of them every day. And so that's a short term. They have to meet the goals no matter what. But on the marketing side, the goal tend to be long term. If you really want to build a brand awareness, if you really want to facilitate that buying uh, uh, um, experience, it's not just one day, 1 week, 1 quarter type of effort, right? You look at things a little bit more long term, right? There's an official saying, if you will, in marketing. You have to there got to be you have to touch a prospect 7 times before that the message will stick, right? That's a 7 impressions.
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest with you, sales don't have time for that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So right there, in terms of the roles and responsibility, and also the goal alignment tend to be very different. And these two will also drive and dictate the resource allocation and budget allocation. Therefore, all of a sudden, you are seeing downward spiral. When on the top, when your goals are different, when you are doing execution, obviously it's a different way to approach things. And then you see that drift getting bigger and bigger when you go down to a technical level. Is that helpful?
It is. It is.
Yeah.
So in chapter 4, you talk about branding and messaging and how that applied to sales. And the consistency and simplicity of brand messaging should be easier than it is, but it's not. And it gets lost within organizations all the time. And that always escapes me as to why. But and then the customer, basically they get eventually get some mixed messaging. And I often
Hmm.
recite that the confused buyer always says no. So how do we solve that problem with marketing and sales alignment?
Great question. When I say consistency for branding and messaging, and I'm not trying to say that you have to, absolutely have to follow the branding and messaging guideline to the T. So I want to make sure all the listeners out there that understand. I understand sales can be situational, and depending on what kind of question and also the different stages of a sales process, that you may need to use a different messaging or
Mm-hmm.
different talking point. I totally get that. Okay. When I say consistency for branding and messaging, and Kenneth, you picked this up very quickly, in terms of consistency, I think one point that you mentioned is to deliver a consistent message, so that there's a seamless experience and also a consistent um, takeaway, if you will, that your prospects and your customers will get. In order to keep that, I think the one of the key thing is education, and also training and the retraining, right? If you think about on the sales side, especially on technology sales, there's onboarding, right? And there's a regular continuous training that the sales team needs to be on top of it. This is especially true when your products, especially software products, are constantly getting updated. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
It
So
does.
there's onboarding and there's also continuous training. The branding and messaging can easily, if you really work hard and proactively working very closely with the sales operation and sales training, incorporate the branding message, incorporate the messagings into part of the onboarding and also continuous training. And like I said earlier, that a lot of time you need a 7 touch point to your potential prospects in order for the message to stick. That same analogy applies to a salespeople too.
Sure.
Sometimes you have to say that 7 times, right? But you don't say it in front to them. You have to pick a time that is situational appropriate that they will listen. And one of the two ways I can think of, the first one is incorporate it into a training. Second one is they salespeople tend to have a weekly huddle,
Hmm.
right? Grab 10 minutes, just 10 minutes if it's time, and to tell them what is the change on your messaging and give them a quick update on the branding or whatnot. Right. Then this is especially true when you have a product launch. This is especially true when you actually have additional features that has been added. So just be part of the process. And I think that's a easier way to go
Yeah.
for both sales and the marketing.
Well, then how do we educate or at least better demonstrate to a sales department the types of content marketing is creating and utilizing in campaigns? I mean, it's one thing to put it out there and hope they see it, and then there's another to conceptualize it and then arm your sales team with some really powerful marketing collateral and pull them in beforehand.
Yeah. So, in my book, and I think it's chapter 4, I think, and I was talking about a specific example. I don't remember the company name, but let me just quickly share with everyone in terms of the story without the name of the company. I want to apologize to that. Um, I think Michael King, I remember now, is the sales the marketing manager actually, and for his company. And what he usually does, he's attend a weekly huddle meeting on a regular basis just to get a sense what sales team are talking about, what kind of issues they have. And during the huddle meeting, the senior salespeople will talk about the challenges they encounter for that week or for that past couple weeks. And a lot of time, the issues they encounter tend to be rejections. Well, that, oh yeah, I got rejected by this customer, and multiple times, and I share these are the content I share, but it's not very helpful. So you get a sense in terms of what they share and how they got rejected. And from time to time, they will also share that, hey, you know what? I was able to move the lead into a next level, and I was able to overcome the rejection by doing the following. Right? And they talk about like the steps they take or the meeting they have. And a lot of time they will talk about what kind of content they share.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So you get the sense as a marketer when you attend meetings like that, you get the sense what kind of content actually is for them.
Sure.
Then you get the sense of that. Then if you are a creator or you are a campaign manager, in general, you have some understanding in terms of what kind of marketing content you have, either on your website or at your fingertips. Then now you can look at the list of a content. You don't actually have to have a complete how should I say it, content landscape. You
Sure.
don't need to understand like every single content that has been created for the company. You, I'm pretty sure a lot of marketing managers, if they working on content, they have a sense like if top 20 or top 25, the marketing content that they either created or is most popular. Once you get the sense in terms of what kind of content tend to work on the sales side, by listening, by attending their weekly huddle meeting, you can actually offer your current marketing content in terms of to them. You're making a suggestion. You say, hey, you know what? By listening to what John talked about in terms of how to overcome the rejection, and these are the couple content pieces they use, I just want to share with you. If you want to talk about these couple products, here's some marketing content you probably can consider. Does that make sense?
It
It's
does.
that driving that conversation, using their points to promote some of your content pieces. But again, you need to be very situational, and at the same time, you need to know what they are looking for.
Well, the good news is that a lot more CMOs are being pulled in closer to the revenue discussions. So that helps
Totally agree.
align, helps align a lot of that. It helps them
Yeah.
start looking a lot more at data and how to use that to drive sales. But, in the end, and we're talking about ways to help the two teams function better together. But in the end, how does this help make me a better marketer?
Great question. And I want to answer that from two different perspectives. And again, everything I say is tend to be on a two or three different perspective. One is from micro, the other one is from macro. All right. The micro perspective in terms of how, yeah, helping sales. How can I help you to become better marketers? From my perspective, because a lot of marketing tools nowadays can be used on the sales side, you can actually see how sales are using some of your tools, like social medias, like emails. I mean, even podcast, for example, you can interview the sales side. So you can actually see how different marketing channels can be used in a more creative way. Okay, so that's at the micro level. On the macro level, if you actually know in terms of how you can better support your sales, you can actually open a different career path. It may not be 100% on the marketing side. All of a sudden, you open up yourself for potential a career path, either on the training, either on sales enablement, sales operation. There's so many things that you can do in addition just to being a marketer. In fact, I talked to multiple different people that they move their career path a little bit differently, not necessarily just being a marketer anymore, and that Marcom acumen and skill set does help, but they are taking slightly different path.
Sure.
So from my perspective, it does help you to grow in terms of your career path and also in terms of how can you use a different marketing channels in a creative way.
So, so Pam, as you know, I mean, a lot of times the brand lives within itself with your sales and marketing teams, but so many marketing teams work closely with third party agencies, whether it's creative, performance, whoever, and a lot of times those teams don't talk to the sales team. So, how do we pull the agencies who are, a lot of times clueless as to what the sales leader in the brand thinks, and pull them in to help enable sales more effectively as well, because they're an extension of your team for the most part?
Great question. And I ran into that challenge when I was supporting the sales team. I personally think there are two ways to do this. Okay. And the first one is what I did. I make sure I understand the sales process, uh, sales process and sales stage very, very well. And I make sure I also understand their pain points and challenges. That means I am actually part of the sales team and I know what they do and what they need. And I try to brief my agency from the way I understand my sales team, because a lot of time, if you have agencies talk to directly to the sales team, and they, because they don't know my sales team well, they may not ask the question that makes a lot of sense. I think the best way to do it is actually have a very briefing time or sessions, and then write a very great a good briefing, depending on what you do, of course.
Mm-hmm.
If you are creating sales centric type of content, you need to write a nice briefing and solid briefing to brief your agencies. Okay, so that's one way. It's basically you yourself who are supporting the sales team. You obviously know your team very well, then it's your job to brief your agencies well. That's the first, right? The other one is, like I said, you can have the other approach is actually have agencies talk to a sales team, maybe arrange the sales team, the agency one or two people, not a lot, that to shadow your salespeople actually for a couple of days. And I did that myself when I supported the sales team. And if you are doing that, maybe you grab a couple agency people along, and that you shadow sales team for a couple days,
Mm-hmm.
or you interview sales team and make sure your agency are there to listen. If you think about it, all these methods I'm talking about, it's education, education, education. The best way to actually educate your agency, or communicate with your agency, is you help them, you educate them or train them, right? So they know your audience well. And that takes a lot of time. The problem is what I have found, including I like myself as well, that a lot of marketers are very busy.
Mm-hmm.
right? We are
Exactly.
we have so many tasks we have to do, and we barely meet our deadlines. So we don't spend our time to brief our agencies. All the agency want to do a great job for their customers. No agency wants to fail. No agency wants to fail, right? But a lot of time they can only be successful if we meet them halfway. And you have to brief them, and you need to find time to educate them. I always compare um, working with agency like raising kids. If you want to have a well-behaved and independent and and a good children, the parents need to spend time with them. It's called parenting.
Mm-hmm.
That same analogy apply to agency, right? You need to educate them. There's no shortcut. I hate saying this. Absolutely no shortcut.
So, Pam, you have 1 minute to talk about your 7-minute podcast.
All right, very good. Just like Kenneth, I also have a podcast, and my podcast is 7 minutes, and it's called 7 Minute Marketing with Pam. And what I usually do is I share some of my personal observations and tie some of my personal observation to say marketing, or I answer my listeners' questions. So from time to time, they will send me a question, and I will try to answer that question in 7 minutes or less.
Yeah,
So with that being said, send me your marketing questions. I will see what I can do.
perfect. Pam, it's that special time in the show. Are you ready
Uh
for the
oh,
5 most important questions that you're going to be asked today?
I am so scared. I'm
That's
kidding.
perfect. So here we go. Number one, you're going to have to choose between two children here: effective
All right.
sales enablement or global content marketing.
Oh my God, that's hard. Can I have twins?
Yeah,
You know, one boy, one
not,
girl.
not, not bad. Pick one.
Effect, effective sales enablement.
All right,
I actually think I have learned a lot from the previous book, and I think I did a much better job on the second book.
good.
So,
The Kentucky Wildcats or the University of Illinois Fighting Illini. Both of your
oh,
alma
you know what?
maters.
I need to answer on that one too. I'm kidding. Well, basketball, definitely Wildcats, right? But football, we are struggling, but we are getting better. Go Wildcats.
A day with a family and a game at the Portland Trail Blazers, or a day with a family at Oregon's Crater Lake National Park.
Quite a well, actually, you know what? Trailblazers, they
Yeah,
are doing much better this year. And I, if I actually have a front seat, that's even better.
not bad, especially if LeBron's there. Number
That's right.
four, marketing or sales.
Ah, you know what? I'm a marketer through and through,
All right.
marketer.
Number
But marketer helping sales. Okay.
good save. And the most important question that you're going to be asked today is biscuits or cornbread.
Biscuits.
Good answer.
Love biscuits.
So, Pam, where can people find out more about you, follow your thought leadership, marketing advice, and more?
Um, PamDidner.com. My last name is Didner, Didner. First name is Pam. So just Google me. You can find me anywhere on any social media channels.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Pam, for joining us today on A Shark's Perspective.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So there was my conversation with Pam Didner, the author of Effective Sales Enablement. She's a speaker, adjunct professor, strategist, Fortune 100 senior marketer, and a subject matter expert on sales enablement. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from our conversation with her. First, the boundaries between marketing and sales are becoming very blurry. Whether it's utilizing email or social media or some other tool or channel, it's rare that any one department gets to own any tool or channel solely. As Pam said, it simply depends on the structure of the company, and it's often that both departments understand what the capabilities are with these tools and channels. However, learn what the other department is doing so that you can align on strategy and touch points. Remember that the customer only sees one side of your brand's coin. Second, There's a dilemma for marketers with sales because quite simply they have different goals. Marketers often focus on more of the top of the funnel, whereas sales focuses differently along the buyer's purchase journey. When goals are different, there becomes a bigger drift. Again, it's a matter of understanding for both departments. Both have a goal to increase sales and revenue, but how and when you get there needs to be worked out together. Third, you've got to align the messaging with sales and marketing because the confused buyer always says no. As Pam said, deliver a consistent message so that there's a seamless experience and also a consistent takeaway, if you will, that your prospects and your customers will get. It's about education, training, and retraining for both departments so that each can navigate the brand's message. And by the way, that also extends to your agency partners. As she further said, the best way to educate your agencies is to train them so that they know your audience well. That takes a lot of time, but it's a necessity. Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. It's been my privilege to spend this time with you in order to discuss another one of the many components that makes up marketing today. Remember, friends, that coffee is for closers, so go make some revenue and join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.